Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Meet the Bytes. In this episode, I have Ryan Bernstein. Bernstein or Bernstein?
Bernstein.
Bernstein, okay, thank you. I got it right the first time. For those of you who does not know Ryan, Ryan has been here at Airbyte for 5 months, and you are our senior solutions architect. Interesting fact, though, is that before Airbyte, you've been here for 5 months. You were at your last company for almost 8 years.
I was there quite a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And then the next company you join is one of the best companies in the world, which is Airbyte, of course. So welcome to the company. So anyway, this is Ryan. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, Ryan, is there anything I missed? What else is there about you that they might not know? You're a solutions architect. You weren't always a solutions architect.
I was not. And so we were just talking about this a little bit before, but before I joined the data world and the big data organizations, I was in the medical device world. And so I was working on products specifically designed to help heal the human body and tissue scaffolding and areas where we could accelerate our healing capabilities. But I got pretty frustrated with how slow that industry moves and how heavily regulated it is. And anytime you want to do anything innovative, if you want to take any risk, you're talking about like a decade of work before it could see the market. And so I wanted to move somewhere where I could be a little bit more fast paced. So
and then
here we are.
Tech. That is so interesting though. Right. So hold on, let's move back a little bit. This is such an interesting way to start this interview, but why did you want to move into that market first, right? And then you eventually moved to tech. I mean, a lot of people I think a lot of people actually move to tech later in their life, unless you went to college for it. A lot of people went straight to tech later in their life, like me. Yes. So why did you try to dive into that first? What was it? What is it about that?
Yeah. So I originally went to school. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I loved building and creating things and tinkering. And so I went to University of Michigan, which is a great engineering program, but specifically actually for mechanical engineering. I wanted to work on cars. And my first year there, my first semester, I joined what they have a solar car team where U of M has one of the best solar car programs in the country, if not the world. And I was working with one of my friends there on it, and we got put on tasked with a really cool project, but it started absorbing our lives. And like I put more time in that project than I did into my schoolwork. And I realized I wasn't finding joy in it. It was interesting, but it just like the reward wasn't there. So had a little bit of soul searching, or as much as you can do in college, and decided I wanted to work on something where I thought I could help people. And a good pivot into that was biomedical engineering, where you get to make products that really make a difference in people's lives.
It's just interesting. You go from mechanical engineer, right? Because you like working the cars, then trying to, which is amazing, trying to save people's lives. And then you did mention how it's slow pace. Because yes, I mean, even some of the medicine I use or people I know that use medicine, some of that medicine is being worked on for 10, 15 years, if not 20 years. Before you see, is that what you're talking about? Like, for example, as a developer, I write my code, I push it to production maybe after 1 or 2 weeks, boom, right? As a front-end developer, a couple hours, boom, you see the results right away. Was it simply because of that? It just takes way too long to see the results or something?
Yeah, that's absolutely one component of it. I think there's a lot of steps in place to make sure the things that get released keep people safe. But one of the fundamental tenets, particularly of medical device development, is that you want to make things that are like other existing things. Let's call it part of like the 510K process, where as long as something else is similar enough to it, you can skip a lot of the heavy lifting you need to do to get approved. The problem with this approach is it totally disincentivizes innovation and trying to do anything new, because you need to build things that are like existing things, just like slightly different.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And now you're in tech.
and now I'm in tech. Yeah.
You've been in tech for what, over 10 years now?
Going on almost a decade now.
Almost a decade. Okay, nice. So why didn't you go back to the medical field? Right? Why didn't you go back into what you originally did for a living? You've been in tech over almost 10 years now, right? So what is it? I mean, the pay is nice. right? It's
The
fast
pay is
paced,
nice,
and
but
again, the pay is very nice. But other than that, then what is it? Well, why are you still in tech?
yeah, so I got out of that field because I wanted to be able to do things that I could quickly take risks, see big innovations, and make big impacts. And so I got out of
Mm,
medical devices, went to ad tech, and spent a good chunk of my career there, where you got to do things. And if you take a big risk, the worst thing that happens in ad tech is that somebody doesn't see the right ad, and that's okay. And so when I was looking for my next move out of that, I was thinking about getting back into the medical device world or the medical world. But when Airbyte came across my plate, it really got me realizing how important data is to everything that goes on. Data feeds all of our
literally
systems.
everything, everything.
Exactly.
The world lives on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And whether you're a hospital, whether you're a medical device company, whether you're a university, everyone is consuming and a user of data. So, what better way to help people and help the world than by making it easier for people to consume data?
Hence, why you were probably at LiveRamp for such a long time.
Yeah. Uh,
You love data
and
that much.
and my journey through LiveRamp was pretty interesting. I got to work on some really cool stuff. I started doing a lot of technical support for some of our big accounts. But then eventually, near the end of my time there, got to do a lot of government work, visit out some of our politicians in DC, and help with our efforts in lobbying for better regulations on how
Wow.
data is managed.
I'm curious because you were at LiveRamp, which has been around for a while, right? For
Mm.
almost a decade, if not more than a decade already. So I'm curious how that transition from working in biotech to data, 'cause it feels totally different, right? I mean,
Ooh,
you
it,
joined, and
it
I'm
was.
I'm stalking you on LinkedIn right now. You joined as a product implementation manager, right? I feel like that's totally different from a product development engineer at biotech. How does that even transition? Like how did that work? You were just interviewing and boom, LiveRamp popped up. I'm curious to see how you got in the field because you weren't originally planning to work in tech in general at all. So how did that happen?
No, not at all. And even beyond that, and I don't think I've shared this story. I was planning on moving to Chicago.
Yes, and you're
My
sharing it on here.
girlfriend, my girlfriend was living up there at the time, and so I was looking at various like design firms like IDEO, and others in that space. And I had a friend actually, and tying it back to the Block M from school, who had joined LiveRamp, and she had
Mm.
reached out, said, "Hey, I'm at this really cool company. We're doing some interesting things. Have a conversation." And so I did that. I ended up flying out there. And what sold me was the people and the culture
Mm.
they were creating. It wasn't as much about the product and what we were building, although that was great too. It was
It
the
was the
team of
culture.
individuals. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I joined Airbyte. I mean, because I haven't had the best. I've had good experiences in tech, but not all companies in tech have great culture and people. Actually, I would
No.
argue very little. There are only X amount of companies, probably a couple of handfuls of companies out there that do that. Um, that makes sense. So why is it? What is it about a culture that pulls you so much to join? So totally different because you're changing your career. You were at your last company for 3 years. You move into
Yeah.
tech. So what was it? What about the culture? What is it about the people? And don't
Yeah.
just say it just because you know Michelle and John LaFleur is watching this, okay? I know Michelle is
So
from LiveRamp as well.
he is. And I think what Michelle has done is he's taken a lot of the things that we saw that we really liked at LiveRamp that were really good and worked well and helped
Mm,
bring them to Airbyte while also filtering out some of the things that maybe weren't as strong culture contributors. And I can tell you, LiveRamp I think had a good culture, but what Michelle and John have built at Airbyte is just next level. To them, it is so important that we set the right foundation and have the right
yes.
culture. It permeates everything that we do.
Culture is so important though, isn't it? Like in a
It,
company. And the thing is
it is. Yeah.
it can die so fast. Culture,
Yeah.
as great as it could be, can change immediately. Especially, I mean, here at Airbyte, we are, we're in hypergrowth mode. We're trying to grow as fast as possible, hire as many people as possible in the midst of a recession, right? We're still hiring as many people as we possibly can. And so the more people we bring in, the more a culture can change. But from
Yeah.
what I've seen, at least, the entire time I've been here for 9, now reaching 10 months. They fought to keep that culture the way it is. And so like, I'm really curious to see your thoughts on that. the importance of culture at a company, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where it's kind of like I liken it to like gravity, where incentives and culture are
Mm,
things that shift all of the decisions from the small ones to the big ones. And you don't have to create particular frameworks that says like if X do Y, it's greater than that in that it influences everything that goes on. And so, yeah, Michelle and John have done an awesome job in saying, here's the culture we're striving for and making sure that every Airbiter is responsible for maintaining it. And whether it's
yeah.
be your own CEO and CEO of a project or be humble but confident, those types of concepts
Yes.
really are core to what we're doing.
I have personally been humbled many times because this world is very new to me, very, very new to me. Things I thought I knew about data engineering, no, data engineering is much larger and than I could ever imagine. When I joined this company, I had no idea the amount of things and how important data engineering
But
is
do
to
you
the
feel
world.
your confidence is building though? That
Oh, huge! Especially because I go to all these conferences, literally not just in the country, now around the world. With you, you see me asking you questions of things I don't know. You've been very helpful for that. It's really nice to have a solutions architect right next to me whenever I go to these conferences. No, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot. But one thing I want to touch back though is on the culture, and I talk about this in every video because it's so important. I have so many friends and just networked. I network with so many people in tech who complain about how bad the culture is at the company.
yeah.
And I don't see that at all. I mean, usually sometimes companies will try to hide it here and there, but you see it. But I mean, the culture here has been amazing. And I'm curious though, why did you leave a company you've been at for 8 years? If you've been at 8 years, that means you'll never leave, right? You're there for 8 years already. So like, what is it that made you join Airbite in the first place?
It's tough when you've been somewhere that long. It becomes like a family to you, right? And it's definitely not easy leaving. Um, but I really liked what Airbyte was building, the idea of it. And more importantly, I knew a lot of the people already at Airbyte. And these were people that I had worked with at LiveRamp or otherwise. And I knew the type of values and things that were important to them, what they wanted to build. And with that confidence in place, I knew that the ship they were creating was a ship you wanted to be on.
That's a good answer. No, I agree again. And I think just having the confidence in the CEO, the co-founders, right?
Yeah.
Having that confidence in them uh, helps a lot, right? And I think one thing that's very interesting about working here is that they are very transparent about everything, right? I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
Everything, right? They share everything with you, which helps a lot, though, for sure.
Me neither. I'll tell you, I've likened it almost to like skinny dipping, where it's like, oh boy, we're really taking off all our clothes and going here at this. Uh, so I will share an anecdote. I might get in trouble for this one, but there was a discussion. We have a internal Slack channel for sales. And
Hmm.
originally, that channel was a private channel. It was designed just for the sales team. But slowly, more and more people started crawling into that channel, adding
Just
to it.
like every
And
other channel we have.
channel creep, right?
Yep.
It keeps growing out. But then the discussion came, should we make this a private channel or should it be a public channel at all? And I think for a lot of us, our default, what we're used to, that comfort zone is keep it private, keep it like between our internal team. But
Yep.
John specifically, and it was a good advocate for that transparency, the idea of like, let's shed the clothes, let's all do this together. It's refreshing.
Yeah, no. And coming from a corporate company like myself, like I came from New Relic, everything was private. I think,
Mm.
I mean, my manager there was so used to fighting to make sure that we kept everything internal within, the DevRel team and etc. And so I'm not used to this at all. But I feel like it's great because if you see everything, the trust is there, right? You feel like you could trust people
Yeah.
more and
Yep.
etc. The transparency is there. If you do something wrong, you'll get called out in a way where it can help you improve. I mean, which is necessary at a startup like this for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it helps understand people's motives, what other people are juggling, and the reason they make the decisions, and allows us to really, I think, work together at our optimal capability.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I am curious, from your point of view, as our senior solutions architect who's been here for almost half a year, right? I want to ask a question in regards to where do you see us going? Right, we're working on a lot of things right now. We're working on uh, the what do you call that? A low connector, no code
Mhm.
connectors that we're working on, right? And etc. But looking at the things that are being worked on right now that we're building, where do you see Airbus being within the next 2 to 3 years, despite the recession? Right? Maybe even taking that into a factor as well. No
I
pressure.
you know, the recession's interesting because it definitely is a forcing function and pressure that I think is weighing not just on Airbyte, but all companies.
Yeah.
But if you step back for a second, I think that just means people have to be smarter about the data they're using and the choices they're making.
Mm.
And when they're doing that, you need tools like Airbyte. Airbyte, our goal is really commoditize the flow of and transport of data. We want to make it really easy to get data from point A to point B. And I think if we can do that, we shift not just this industry, but all of the industries that sit on top of us. And it'll
Mm.
have uh, massive downstream effects. So I think that's where we're going. And I'm really excited to see how that journey really falls out.
One of the things I'm excited about is just the fact that we're making the lives of data engineers, right, easier.
Yeah.
Literally, right? ELT, being able to move data, transform data, etc., much more easily. Uh, Something that used to take what, hours, if not days, to do, they can now do. Like, I mean, you have to set it up at first, but pretty quick now, which is what I'm excited for.
Well, and even then, they can punt it out to other people on their team. Before, right, the data engineers used to be the bottleneck. And you'd have to go to
Yes.
engineering and say, all right, I need help fixing this pipeline, creating this pipeline.
Mm.
Now, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
A solutions architect or an analyst can come up and be like, great, I'm going to start pulling these data feeds and answer these questions that I need so we can make
Hmm.
business critical decisions.
And you don't have to wait anymore on the data engineer to do that for you, which is great.
No. Yeah.
Which is what makes me so excited. And it's funny because I had no idea. I mean, I knew what it was that we were doing here, but I had no idea to the extent of how much of an impact on the industry we would have. So I'm really happy I joined Airbyte. I joined at the right time,
Me
right at the
too.
Series B. So that's good timing. Good timing. Um, Another thing I do want to ask then for you, as a solutions architect here at Airbyte, what are your biggest challenges that do you face on a day to day?
Um, one of the things about being a SA, SE, data architect, whatever you call us, our titles change all the time, is that you have to be able to go from like the 10,000 foot view down to like the millimeter view in
Mm,
the blink of an eye. Uh, we need to be able to think about how all of these systems are coming together, orchestrating and the impact that it has on a business and help them articulate that internally to their own stakeholders. But then we also have to dive into um, particular issues that are happening with write ahead logs and making sure that the retention time for write ahead logs is long enough so that they don't expire before the next time we start to do a pull. And that ability that to traverse those levels can sometimes be a challenge, that context switch.
what is it that you love the most about your job?
Whew, we're going from one side to the other. Um,
Yep. Context switching. That's part of working at a startup as well, right?
Indeed, it is. I'll actually say something that is new to me about Airbyte that I am really starting to embrace is the experimentation culture. Uh, this is not one of our particular values that we espouse, but it's core to how we are learning and growing, and I love it. The idea is like, let's just try it. Who knows? We don't know if this particular idea will work or this particular method or this motion will work, but let's give it a shot and see, versus trying to do all this, like think tank analysis or thought processes behind it. Just do it, experiment, record the results, write it down, write out your hypothesis and measure the results and see what happens.
And everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
I see everyone
It's
doing it.
throughout the
It's
org.
amazing. And I think just communication wise, it helps a lot, helping us see the direction we're going, in particular products that we're working on, what works, what doesn't work. And I feel like, and not just that, I feel it helps us make quicker decisions, helps us move faster, which is great about that. For example, right, experimenting with a lot of things like this podcast. I was originally told not to do podcasts right away, but I figured I'll just do it anyway, and it tends to be working out so far. So that is amazing.
Exactly. And to your point, it's everywhere throughout the company. It's whether it's like we're going to experiment and do A/B testing on our website, with the content we produce, with the types of packages we're offering, the sales motions we're conducting, and even the way that we are creating our product. It really sits everywhere, and it's great.
Definitely. All right. One last question I want to ask you. Okay. What do you like to do for fun? Right. You're the smart Ryan that everyone knows, intelligent, right? You know a lot of things about a lot of things. I mean, you've worked in biotech. You like working. I guess you like working on cars. So, what is it that you like to do for fun? That's not tech related. I mean, unless it is tech related, I guess.
I used to do more tech related things until it became my primary job. And now once something becomes your job, you like to have things outside of that. Like I used to make apps and do web scraping and other things like that. Most recently, I got into axe throwing. This is right around the pandemic. Uh, and it sounds a little weird. And, there's like those axe throwing bars everywhere you can go to. I went to one of
Hmm.
those and I was like, this is awesome. This is so cool. So I actually built out my own little
Of
setup in my
course, you would
yard.
build your own setup.
Yeah. And so now when I need to blow off steam, I go out and just, throw axes for a little bit. And it's
Wow.
very relaxing.
How good are you at it now?
I wouldn't say I am great. My my first league tournament I joined, I came
You
in
joined a
third, I think, out of
tournament.
maybe.
Wow,
Oh
you're
yeah.
serious about this. This is your new passion. Okay. You said so you placed third.
I placed third out of maybe a dozen
Nice.
people. So I think it was okay. Uh,
That's impressive.
so
I mean, for
yeah,
someone that
I got
travels
some
a
work to
lot.
do on it.
So yeah, that's impressive. That's
Yeah.
impressive. Actually talking about traveling, so we're both going to. Are you going to? I think we're going. We're both going to London. I don't know if you're going to Paris as well.
Yeah. I'm going to Paris and we're both speaking in London, right?
Oh, you're and yes, and I saw that. I just saw that right before this interview. So you're speaking at London as well. Yes, I'm speaking at London about our low code, no code connectors as well. So that's exciting. I had no
Great.
idea you were speaking there until I looked at the Big Data London website, and that's exciting. So I'm excited about
Yeah.
that. Awesome. Okay, is there anything for anyone who doesn't work at Airbyte that's watching this right now? Is there anything you want them to know about potentially working here or anything in general?
I think you got to always have to be doing some measure of like self-reflecting and saying, am I doing what I want to be doing? And if not, why are you there and what are you doing? And so I think that challenging your own expectations and your own desires is really important. So I would always encourage that. And if Airbite is a fit for other people, great. And if not, there's a lot of other places out there that are great companies that are looking for people.
Definitely. But if you also want to work at a great culture, and if you want to work with Ryan, join Airbite. Awesome. Well,
Exactly.
Ryan, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you need to head out soon, so I appreciate you being on this call. And everyone who's listening right now or watching, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.